At the southwestern corner of Europe, the Iberian Peninsula is the second largest after Scandinavia. Of the 583,000 square kilometers, Spain occupies 506,000 or 87%. It was inhabited by a pretty mixed group of people from Europe and North Africa. In 218 BC, the Romans began a gradual colonization of the whole peninsula, and by 206 BC the colonization was complete, and they ruled for another 400 years. The Romans were master builders, and wherever they conquered, they built aqueducts, public baths, and circus, which are open fields for competitive games. Toledo is one such ancient city on the banks of the Tagus in central Spain. In the humble church in Toledo, the side chapel is adorned by a famous painting in art history. The burial of Count Auguste shows the heaven above, and below the earthly burial of a very pious and generous nobleman of Toledo, Don Gonzalo Ruiz. At his burial at the Santo Tome Church, two saints, Stephen and Augustine, appeared miraculously to lower his body into his tomb and then disappeared suddenly. He was the mayor of a nearby town called Auguste and willed a large sum to upkeep the church, but the money stopped coming. 260 years later, Andre Nunes, the priest, sued and won. With the money, he commissioned a talented artist, El Greco or the Greek, to paint the memory of his burial. Under the Muslim rule, although Jews and Christians were treated as second-class citizens, they were allowed to keep their faith. The Jews were economically successful and their population swelled. When the Catholic Christian monarchs reconquered the Iberian Peninsula, the religious minorities were forced to convert or face expulsion. The Spanish Inquisition rooted out and persecuted impure converts. Some 160,000 Jews were expelled, leaving behind their landed properties that are now preserved for history.
Wow, now, what is this red house? They check out its 100 of time. They able to get before. This process, okay, it's very, very long. So only 5 or 6 hours to finish it just one sort. Now here, okay, you can see just how to still before. Finally, please. Show you. So finally now here you can see a finished sword. Same steel, before and after applying the textile. Very, very flexible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I show you all pieces finished. Okay,
It was the 3rd century AD. The mighty Roman Empire was facing a new threat. Barbaric German tribes called Goths had attacked their northern frontier. Skirmishes escalated to wars, and in 378 AD they defeated and killed the Roman Emperor Valens in the Battle of Adrianople. When the Goth king Alaric threatened Rome, Emperor Honorius offered to settle him in Gaul or present-day France and enlisted him to drive out the Vandals from the Roman Iberian Peninsula. A western faction, the Visigoths, moved to Gaul. The eastern faction, the Ostrogoths, eventually took over Rome and the Italian peninsula for 60 years. The Visigoths succeeded in putting the Iberian Peninsula in order. However, Frankish attacks in France made the Visigoths shift their capital from Toulouse to Toledo. They also converted from the Arianist Christianity to Catholic Christianity to be better accepted by the Spanish population they now ruled. Prophet Muhammad died in 632 AD. He had united all the rival tribes in the Arabian Peninsula by one religion he started, Islam. The Khalid was both a religious and political leader over all the Muslims and the land they resided. Tribal rivalry for the position was intense and often violent. The first caliphate, the Rashidun, lasted only 29 years. 3 of the 4 caliphs were murdered. The Umayyad dynasty, the second caliphate, conquered Spain and named it Al-Andalus from 711 AD. The Moors were North African Muslim invaders who ruled the Iberian Peninsula for 781 years from 711 to 1492 AD. They left behind beautiful mosques and palaces. The Cordoba Mosque sits on an original site of a 6th century Visigoth church, Basilica of San Vicente. As more Muslims arrived, the land was shared by both Christian and Muslim worshippers. Abdul al-Rahman I, the last surviving member of the Umayyad ruling family, fled for his life from Damascus after his family was almost wiped out by the rival Abbasid group. He settled and started his own caliphate in Cordoba in 756 AD. In 785 AD, he built the mosque over the church, reusing its material like the columns. On the 2nd of January 1492, 781 years of Muslim rule came to an end in Spain. In this magnificent palace, the Alhambra in Granada, the last emir Boabdil handed the key to King Ferdinand of Aragon and Queen Isabella of Castile, the 2 Catholic monarchs united by marriage to rule a united Spain and drive out Muslims and Jews from the Iberian Peninsula. Alhambra, or the Red One because it glows red when the sun is low, was also a fortress since the 11th century. The Nasrid rulers Yusuf I and Muhammad V expanded it to its present form in the 14th century. The Royal Alcazar or Palace of Seville was built in 913 AD as a new government premises of the Umayyad Caliph from Cordoba, Abdul al-Rahman III. Subsequent rulers added new palaces. When King Ferdinand III of Castile conquered Seville in 1248, he used it as a royal residence. Muslims were allowed to keep their religion and they were called mudehar. Many were skilled craftsmen employed to remodel the palace. The result is a blend of Muslim and Christian art called mudehar style in the design of the Royal Alcazar. At the northeastern border with France is Catalonia, an autonomous region that has a contentious relationship with the central government of Spain. The capital is Barcelona, a city founded and named Barcino by the Romans. During the Muslim invasion, the Frankish Empire seized it and appointed a Count of Barcelona to rule as a vassal state that buffered against the Muslim expansion. In the 12th century, 4 Christian kingdoms occupied the northern part of the Iberian Peninsula, while the Muslim rulers occupied the southern part. The 2 dominant Christian kingdoms were Castile and Aragon. On 7 September 1134, King Alfonso of Aragon died without a child. That would be a windfall for Catalonia later. The nobility elected his younger brother Ramiro to succeed. Unfortunately, he was a monk and had to be permitted by the Pope to break his vows of celibacy to become king. Permission was granted, and in a short time he produced a daughter named Petronilla. As the religious call to monkhood was overpowering, he betrothed his infant to the Count of Barcelona, Ramon Berenguer IV, 23 years older, to secure his promise to marry her and rule the composite kingdom of Aragon with Catalonia as a principality. With that promise signed in a contract, he abdicated on 13 November 1137 and passed the royalty to his son-in-law. The marriage was solemnized in a wedding when Queen Petronilla turned 14 in August 1150. During her first pregnancy, she willed her kingdom of Aragon to her husband should she die in childbirth, a common complication then. Barcelona in turn became a very rich maritime power for the Aragon kingdom. In 1469, King Ferdinand II of Aragon and Queen Isabella I of Castile married and together ruled Spain. Since then, Catalonia has been on the losing side of history and is fighting for independence. Basilica de la Sagrada Familia, or the Church of the Holy Family, was inspired by devotees of Saint Joseph. The first architect, Francisco de Paula del Villa, resigned after a year in 1883 over disagreements. Antonio Gaudí took over and redesigned the church into a piece of modern Gothic art that became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. On the 7th of June 1926, Gaudí was knocked down by a tram. He died 3 days later on the 10th, just in time to see the completion of the first of the 18 towers. The construction is still ongoing after over a century because of wars. "45 kilometers northwest of Barcelona is a monastery up in Montserrat. It began in 880 AD amidst several hermitages. The monastery was founded in 1025 on the Hermitage of Santa Maria. A Black Madonna was found in the 12th century, and miracles that happened since have attracted pilgrimages. In the 16th century, a basilica was built and was visited by famous people including Pope, Columbus, kings and queen. It was destroyed by Napoleon's soldiers in 1811 but was rebuilt. During the Spanish Civil War, the monastery resisted Franco's dictatorship and hid many who were persecuted. 20 monks were executed in revenge. Catalan is still used, and the monastery is Catalan's pride against oppression. Flamenco, the Spanish dance, was originally introduced by gypsies from India and Romania about 400 years back. It was primarily singing that narrates their daily lives, with the dance and instrument parts secondary. As it was a performing art of an outcasted minority, it was shunned by the upper class. However, foreigners liked the dancing that was sensual, fiery, and spectacular. It evolved and the dancing became primary, while the singing narration, which few understood, became secondary. Over time, it became refined and was even incorporated into operas like Carmen. During the Spanish Civil War, General Franco saw it could attract tourism and forge a national unity. He made flamenco a Spanish national dance that later earned a UNESCO Cultural Heritage Award.